أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, our dear viewers, and welcome to another episode on the forum, coming to you from MT International Gambia Studios. On today's episode also we have here in the studio some people from the Ombudsman, some familiar faces on this program. On my immediate right I have Juma K. Kamara, who is the Director of Communications at the Ombudsman. Juma, thank you for joining us and welcome to the program.
Thank you and having me on the program again.
On his right again we have Mr. Landing Bondi, who is the head of the human rights, should we call it department or what? Human rights department at the Ombudsman. Thank you very much for joining us and you're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Juma K. Kamara, in our previous episodes we discussed a lot, and part of what we talked about was the independence of the body we call Ombudsman, and as well as your operations. Mr. Landing Bondi as well told us about their operations and how they do it, and if they go into those operations, what do they see and how do they address that. But nonetheless, we will come and we will want to at least try to connect this program with the previous one. So you tell us, for the benefits of maybe those who did not watch the previous programs, can you briefly explain the function of the Ombudsman?
All right, thank you very much. The Ombudsman is there to regulate the public sector. The public sector, as we know it, is run by people, and these people are public officers whose conduct, it is important, should be regulated by an independent body. This is important, or it is necessary, because people always, human beings as we know them, human beings, we are all imperfect. There are decisions that we take and that will affect people negatively, adversely, and sometimes it is out of mistake. But the most important thing here is, by way of summary, the Ombudsman is there to ensure that whatever public officers have done in the course of official duty, which is injurious, which is harmful, which people feel is unfair, which people feel affect them in one way or another, the Ombudsman is there to receive those complaints and investigate and recommend for corrective action. That is, if you are a victim of an act of maladministration, the Ombudsman can recommend that in case of your right being violated, that your right be restored. In case of your entitlement of any form being denied, the Ombudsman can recommend for your entitlements to be given to you. So, and these things usually happen in two ways: public institutions or public officers complaining against their institutions. And that is the part I first alluded to. That is, employees have various rights or entitlements in their various places of work. If they are denied, then we want them to understand that the Ombudsman is there for them to go where they can go and lodge their complaint. If also in the course of official, in their work, they are victims of some punitive actions that they believe is unfair or disproportionate, or they believe they are not, the actions were not warranted. If they feel there is anything that affects them that comes to them in the form of a decision to punish them, and these are issues that we will go into details as we go into the programs, then they have a right to come to the Ombudsman to lodge a complaint. The other important aspect is all of us who are members of the public, we do interact with public officers. So in the course of this interaction, you don't have to work for a public institution. You simply have to have reason to interact with public officers. When you are sick, you go to a government hospital. We're not talking about private hospitals. We're going to that. When you need education, you go to the schools, government schools. When you need documents, you go to the immigration. When you have issues, problems among ourselves, maybe crime is committed, we go to the police to lodge our complaints. When we need to pay revenue, and how do you call it, tax, we go to GRA. When you are a driver, you have to encounter police on the road, the traffic police. When you are, even if you are a farmer down there, you have Ministry of Agriculture, extension workers, you have people that you will interact with. So at every level, all of us do interact with public officers. We can be caused or made to pay for services that we are not supposed to pay for. We can be asked to pay more. We can pay for services also. So I'm talking about also now services later as well. We can pay for services that we pay for services and we're not even given receipts. Sometimes you can pay for services and your service is not delivered. You have done your part, and that government body or that government or public enterprise or government department does not give you the service that you paid for. So there are several ways in which we can be dissatisfied, or we can be treated unfairly, unjustly. We can be defrauded, victims of issues of corruption and bribery and stuff like that. So anytime we feel that public officers, not public officers themselves, like only in the offices, all of us. And that part we need to emphasize, because so many times people think the moment you say ombudsman regulates the public sector, they say, what happens between employer-employee? It's not about employer-employee only. All of us, you who is not working for employee, you are working for MTA, but if you go to any of these institutions, they treat you in a way that you believe is unfair. You go to the ombudsman will look into your complaint and will investigate and will recommend, that is will offer you redress. That is if you are deserving of it, because that is why we say investigate. So it's not that you just come and lodge whatever complaint and you expect that it should favor you. So it will investigate, and if the outcome is favorable to you, it means that your grievance will be redressed, and you wouldn't pay anything. The service completely free of charge, and that was why we'll do that. Look into the matter impartially, with all objectivity and thoroughly, to arrive at a just conclusion. In summary, this is what the ombudsman does.
Thank you very much, Jumake Kamara. Now we come to you, Mr. Landing Bondi. In our previous episode, we talked about the places that you visit. You visit detention centers, you visit other facilities like prisons, and you have told us that when you go there, you do meet, sometimes you are met with not welcoming faces. And but most of the time, like you said in our previous program, they are welcoming and they allow you to do your job. But that is the area that I wanted to touch for us today is when you go to such places, let's say for example the prisons, and as just a visit, when you see something that is abnormal or something that shouldn't be done, it's against the human right. It is against human rights. How do you address that? Is it something that you do, let's say, there and then, or it's something that you take back to the office and then you say, this is what we found in this so and so place, and this is what we want to be implemented?
Thank you very much for that question. There are different ways of approaching dealing with the matter. There are some issues that we address on the spot. That is where the place that we visit, like for example, somebody said that I want to speak to my relatives, and since I came, I was unable to do that. Then we can see how best it can be facilitated. Maybe speak to the officers if there's any possibility, or sometimes one of us do help them to communicate. So it depends on the nature of the case. But generally, after the visit, we do write a report and make recommendations, indicating what we found and also what we want to be changed, exactly, to be in line with international, even national or regional human rights standards, because these are the things that, I mean, are expected to be done to make sure that the place of detention are decent, proper, and so forth. So, as I said, some instances, like especially if the place is not clean, we tell them that where is the cleaner. So the cleaner should be called to immediately clean the place. So certain issues, I mean, things that can be easily fixed or don't need any delay, we try to fix them whilst we are there. But I mean, issues that are complex or issues that require money, or issues that, I mean, cannot be solved immediately, we do write a report. And in these reports, as I said, recommendations are made and sent to the detention facility that we visited, like police station, like Bundu Police. We write to the station officer, get his or her feedback. Then later we write to the IGP and then even the Ministry Interior, because there are some recommendations that cannot be done by the station officer. Like, but I mean, because he or she doesn't have the resources, so it has to be at the ministry level or the IGP, but mainly the ministry be in charge of the whole detention facility. I mean, many detention facilities, so that at least actions can be taken. Some can take some time, and that's not only the Gambia, because some countries, like even UK, they will tell you that we made these recommendations, but this one has been implemented, but this one has not. So governments it's always a challenge to ensure that the recommendations are fulfilled. Governments in most cases, are reluctant. They don't give much priority to detention facilities. And I think that has to change, because nobody knows who will be there. You may not be there, but your son or your relative can be there. I think the last time when our office met, the president some time ago, he told them that prison, anybody can be there. So if we take that if we take that angle, we will make our detention facilities better. Anybody can be there. It could be you yourself, because you may have an accident, maybe knock somebody, and then they may say, okay, we have to detain you for some time until we investigate. What will you do? You'll be in that situation that you don't like. So we do make recommendations, actually. As I said, on the spot, we do try to fix. And also when you come, there is what they call visit reports that you write for each station or each place. Then there is also what they call annual report, which is a sort of global report. Some people term it that way, where you capture different areas and a common issues. You highlight them there and send the reports. So that's how we deal with our visits. That's after the visit. During the visit, we fix some issues, but after the visit also, we write reports, make recommendations for changes to be effected.
Thank you very much, Mr. Landing Bondi. Mr. Kamara, when we talk about ombudsman, you are touching different areas and institutions, government institutions. Are there areas, let's say, within the government that you are not supposed to look into? And we understand that you are not covering the private sectors, but you told us in one of our programs that that is also on the pipeline. It may be a recommendation that or it may be added to your job, the private sectors, but for now that is not. But within the government sectors or government institutions, are there any places that the ombudsman is not allowed to look into?
All right, thank you. We wouldn't say within the government. Let's just say generally what the areas that the ombudsman is not supposed to look into, or that fall outside the jurisdiction of the ombudsman. The government, since you mentioned government, we should understand that when we say public officers, we mean actions of public officers in the course of official duty. We should underline that. Because if we say we investigate the conduct of public officers, we must also emphasize that it is their official actions that because when somebody is a public officer, he's also a spouse, likely, right? So what happens between him and his wife, or between her and her husband, that is not what the ombudsman look into, right? And the public officer is also a tenant. and you have somebody who's a medical doctor or a nurse or a teacher, and he lives in your compound and he's a tenant, and you say, oh, okay, this public officer has been in my compound for long and has not been paying my rent. It's been 3 months now, so let me go to the ombudsman. No, because he's a public officer, yes, but that's nothing to do with teaching, right? With the hospital work or with the security work that he's employed to do. So being a public officer and what you do will not extend automatically to just anything that you do, whether it have what transpires between you and your neighbors and whoever. Okay, so that's clear. Then one aspect of the public sector we should understand is, and that is outside the work of the ombudsman, is matters that are before a court of law. These are matters that are sub judice. They are pending consideration or judgment. They are being looked into. The matter is being is at a court level or a tribunal level. A court or any tribunal established by law, all the matters that are being handled by them, these are not issues that the ombudsman can look into. But also, if the matter is not just before the court, but has been determined, decided, there's judgment passed, still you cannot say, oh, because I'm not satisfied, so therefore this case or this matter I am taking it to, even if it involves those issues of dismissals of whatever issues that we would later on talked about. If they involve such matters that are within our jurisdiction or issues that are looked into by the ombudsman, and you believe a court has handled it and it was not to your satisfaction, you still cannot bring this to the ombudsman. So the decision of judicial officers is now clear that we do not look into. But let us emphasize, if there is judgment and that judgment is in favor of you, it means, and there is a decision or a judgment that certain actions should be executed in connection with that judgment, and there is a failure to implement that court ruling, then you can bring that matter to the ombudsman, because the matter has already been determined. The ombudsman looking into that matter does not constitute the ombudsman going out of its jurisdiction, because we are not looking into the case, we are not investigating that case, we are not looking into whether that person is entitled to that or not entitled to that and looking at evidence. We are not doing that. We are not re-examining the case. We are not reviewing it. We are only saying that since there is a failure on the part of the executive to implement a court decision, a court ruling, judgment, that means the ombudsman has every right to strengthen the arm of a complainant or a person who is a victim of an inaction by a government body or department, because that action constitutes a violation of a court ruling, which will also constitute an act of maladministration, in the sense that if there's judgment, the judgment should be implemented. So the ombudsman can strengthen that part. Another aspect, talking about the judiciary or the court issues, we should understand that the moment you say court, these are also places where people work. So there are administrative issues there. They are employees. These employees can be treated in ways that are unfair by the people who are responsible for running those places or those institutions. If there is a failure, or if there is any chance of grievance arising from a decision or action of those people who are in charge of those institutions, then even if it is any level of court, the ombudsman can still look into, because the court, the judiciary or even any court of in the Gambian jurisdiction, no matter how high the court is, it is still a public service. It's within the public service. So the ombudsman and our general work is the administrative aspect, looking into the administrative aspect of the public sector. So that is an issue that, and we have handled issues relating to that. So that is an issue that we can look into. So judicial aspects, that is decisions of judicial officers in the course of judicial work will entail reviewing the decision, and that is not what we are supposed to do, because the laws have provided for an appellate system of appeal. You know, the court is in pecking order, right? You can go from the magistrate to high court to court of appeal, and even from court of appeal you can go to Supreme Court. So if you are not satisfied with a decision of a certain court, you have time within which you can appeal the decision or the judgment. So the laws have adequately provided for that. So we understand that outside the private actions of public officers, there's also the matters, judicial decisions that we do not look into. Okay. So the other issue that we do not look into is the affairs of the president. The president has given directive, or the president within his official functions have taken a decision that somebody considers to be unfair or unjust. This matter cannot be brought to the ombudsman. So the president is not within the jurisdiction of the ombudsman or affairs of the president. And when we say affairs of the president, it's broad. So let us understand simply that those things that are emanating from the side of the president that you consider to be unfair, that you consider to be to have constituted a violation of your right or a denial of your entitlement or your right, the ombudsman is not the place for you to lodge your complaint.
But such complaints can be taken to court.
Of course, we have seen that in the Gambia, right? Yeah. We've seen that in the Gambia. So the courts, they have their own jurisdiction, they have their own powers, they have, and different courts have their different jurisdictions. Maybe lower courts can handle this, higher court. I mean, certain matters are only for the Supreme Court to determine interpretation of law, stuff like that, constitutional interpretation. So they all have their limitation and jurisdiction, okay? But then this one is for the ombudsman. The ombudsman does not look into those things relating to the president. Of course, the laws, if you strictly talk about the Ombudsman Act, it also mentions the prerogative mercy. Even if you do not mention the prerogative mercy, let us just box them all into one. Because prerogative mercy, that is important in the sense that the people will say, oh, okay, but that's evidence that he has done something wrong in his work, and he's there, he's gone scot-free. Even the courts have found him guilty. No, this matter cannot rest like that. So let us go to the ombudsman. That is why I think that's why they mentioned specifically the issues relating to the exercise of the prerogative of mercy. So the president can grant somebody pardon, even if it is found the person is found to be guilty of a certain action by court and is sentenced to a jail term. He may not serve that jail term fully, because he has benefited from presidential pardon. So that is one aspect that the Ombudsman Act has stipulated. But irrespective of that, let us just understand generally for our guidance that if it emanates on the side of the president, that is not what the Ombudsman will look into. And this is important. Maybe some viewers would say, oh, okay, but then the president is important. But the law? First and foremost, let's understand that it's not that all ombudsman institutions look into the affairs of the president. Okay, you can have an ombudsman institution elsewhere operating in certain jurisdiction that has power to look into. We all remember the famous scandal issue of Jacob Zuma, when the ombudsman, of course, they don't call her the ombudsman, they call her the public protector. So other countries, they have other names for ombudsman. In South Africa, it's the public protector. So the public protector looked into Fulema Danzela was the public protector, and she investigated the president, the security upgrades of Jacob Zuma on his compound and the many millions that were spent. And he said, okay, she said that recommended that those things should be paid back to the state. And so it does not mean that every country follows that part of South Africa where, they, in our country and other countries, many from the majority, we do not look into the president and what the president does. And look at the Ombudsman Act, the Section 14(1) of the Ombudsman Act. And I think those discussions will come along the way when I come with the Director of Investigation next episode. The president is also serving a purpose in the setup of the Ombudsman investigation, in the sense that he is the last resort when it comes to the enforcement. So he has a place within the enforcement mechanism of the Ombudsman process.
The president.
The president. So there is a place for the president, because for drafters of this law, that is what they have come up with. So
thank you very much, Mr. Juma Kamara. Let me come to Mr. Landing Bundy. We have talked about these detention centers or the places that you visit. We know all the people are not the same. We are not created the same. And of course, some people do have accidents and they become disabled. Some are born like that. In those places, do you do visit? Do they have facilities for such kind of people? Facilities that suit the needs of such kind of people we call disabled. Of course, some people prefer to call them differently able. I don't know whether you agree with that too. Do you see some facilities that are, to benefit to those people? If not, in those places that you visit, if you see such kind of people, how do you help them get those facilities?
Thank you very much. That is a very good question. Detention facilities in the Gambia are not, structured in such a way to facilitate the situation of persons or to help persons with disabilities. We don't know, we rarely come across persons with disabilities in detention facilities. If I can remember, this year, we found a person with visual impairment at in Janjambure prison. But then we were told that he was about to be released. But then we interviewed him. But actually the facilities, because persons with disabilities would need, for example, accessibility is a key part of disability rights. So, and when you talk about accessibility, they don't normally have that. The toilets are just made for everybody. So that's a different matter altogether. And when you talk about, the buildings should be accessible, like ramps, and also like having, wheelchairs to facilitate their movement, and some having even, sticks to facilitate their movement and so forth. But obviously, there is no detention facility in the Gambia that has taken care of the needs of persons with disabilities, in all honesty. Because the blind person we found in Janjambure is that he was helped by people to go to the toilet, but then the toilet itself is not structured in such a way that, because normally they are expected to be wider spaces for them. Exactly. But then when we went there, it was not actually the case. So I would say that generally our detention facilities are not designed to facilitate, the movement of persons with disabilities. Exactly. But then if you move it to society level also, it's not only detention facilities. Now, the issue of persons with disabilities, I would say that we've been given a mandate to look into the issues of persons with disabilities, not only detention facilities. So in this situation, it's not even about going to detention facility, but the community itself. There is a law, Persons with Disabilities Act, which came into being in 2021. Exactly. And that Persons with Disability Act, Section 51 of it, has given mandate to the Ombudsman that the director, the act is, in the act you will find that there should be a director who will take care of the day-to-day affairs of a body in charge of, promoting the affairs of persons with disabilities. Because there should be, there is actually, the Advisory Council for Persons with Disabilities. it consists of different stakeholders. I mean, the chairperson is expected to be a person with disability. Then also three persons with disability, member of Gambia Federation of the Persons with Disability or so should come from that. And also a parent of the person with disability should be a member. But then I think the majority seems, ministries, because you have Ministry of Justice, a representative there, Minister of Education having a representative there, local government, works, I think Social Security, if I remember very well, Labor. So I think they are around 17 or so. So this is an advisory council for persons with disabilities. So they are expected to, their function is expected to be, monitoring detention facilities, places for persons with disability, not detention facilities as such. They can, yeah, but then it doesn't have to be detention facility. Even, where they reside and where they work, they can monitor that to see whether there is any compliance. Even our buildings, this, advisory council is expected to take part in it. And the director is also expected to go with it. The director is facilitating their work. Yeah, and he's expected to be head of the unit of the Persons with Disability unit and Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Welfare. That's where his unit is supposed to be, and he will serve the advisory council. So the advisory council, the lawyer, I think, is something Krubali, magistrate, is the head of the advisory council. So they are in charge of the monitoring and promotion section. They are also expected to raise awareness of the rights of persons with disabilities. That is the advisory council. They've been given that, and they've been given the role of monitoring the facilities. They are also given the role to advise the minister concerning the welfare challenges, issues, and so forth affecting persons with disabilities. They are expected to do that one also. And where there is a need, of course, the law is saying that they should, that, for example, advise on the country to ratify, laws, that's international law, international and regional laws. We've ratified the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in 2018, if my memory serves me right. We've ratified that one. So the one that is left is the African one, and that's a very, very detailed one also. Treaty on Persons with Disabilities. That one also, I think, but the last time I had the minister, through her speech in the forum organized by Human Rights Commission, that the matter is at with the cabinet for the ratification of that treaty. If I get her right, that's passed with them. So it means that we'll have two international, treaties, the UN one and also our African one for persons with disabilities. But then our act is already there. So it's like, having these treaties are also important because they also help in ensuring that countries comply with their international obligations. Because at the domestic level, we may not have, it may not be easy for them to control that. But when it comes to international level, they can say, you ratified this treaty, and it is your consent, and it's binding on you. So you need to fulfill. And there is reporting obligations to international treaty bodies, different from your internal ones. Even where you refuse at international level, they can put pressure on you, where they can say the treaty has been ratified. So the disability, but then Ombudsman comes in section 51 of the Act, where it says that any deprivation of the rights of persons with disability or failure to implement laws, guidelines, and instructions for the welfare and protection of the rights of persons with disabilities. Any failure or any issues on these things can be reported to the Office of the Ombudsman when a person's with disabilities right has been violated or affected, and also when the laws are not implemented. So the director that I mentioned can report it to the Ombudsman on his or her own motion. For example, he doesn't have to get any complaint from anybody. If he realizes that maybe this particular issue has not been addressed, he can come to the Ombudsman and lodge a complaint. Or an aggrieved person can come and lodge a complaint to the Office of the Ombudsman. Or a legal representative of the person with disability can come and lodge a complaint to the Ombudsman. So we've been given this mandate. There are two key bodies in this issue: the Advisory Council and then the Ombudsman here. These two bodies can handle. Ombudsman is given the protection aspect of it, whilst these people are given the promotion. Because when it comes to disability, these three issues are key: the promotion and monitoring aspect, and then the protection mandate. We've been given the protection mandate, but of course, nothing can stop us if we want to sensitize people to this thing. In fact, that will even be adding to helping them. So even this monitoring, if we feel that because it's all about helping. So, but then the key area that has been given to us, complaints to be lodged to the Office of the Ombudsman to see whether this person, their rights have been deprived, they have been deprived of their rights, or the laws have not been implemented, instructions and guidelines. So that's why I'm trying to say that apart from even prisons and detention facilities that you mentioned, and other detention facilities, we also have general society. Let me give an example. Like, for example, it's a huge, it's a government has to be ready because structures have to be changed. Like buildings, government, offices have to be changed. They have to change their structure for persons with disability to have access. Like ramps and others have to change. And if it is lift, the structure having lift must be expanded and the lift must be spacious enough to be able to accommodate wheelchairs. Then when you go to hospitals, schools, even our office of ombudsman and so forth, I was even thinking of advising our office so that we also look at our structure to facilitate, because if you are going to receive complaints, you see how best. So that one is key, that at least buildings have to be, look into to change their structure, and even new ones have to go by the act, because the minister is expected to come with regulations regarding, structuring, of buildings and so forth. So it's a huge, thing. Even transport, access to buses and other vehicles are expected. This information technology, IT, even TV, and so forth, the news should be accessible to them. So it's a broad issue. So where there is failure in this thing, at least, actually, complaints can be lodged to the ombudsman. So it's a massive area, different from the place of detention, community level also. Exactly. So the laws failure in law. That's why, for me, if you look at it, actually, if persons with disability or any other aggrieved person or the lawyers are interested, we will be receiving many cases, because this is an area that's a challenge in many countries, New Zealand and other countries, whereby even building structures is a challenge. Yeah, exactly. So it's always because here it's for persons with disabilities. Most challenges are faced in the area of economic, social, and cultural rights. That's where you talk about, for example, this building issue, where things have to change, and also facilities being provided, because they are also supposed to be given assistive devices must be provided to them. Exactly. So those ones, that's where the battle comes in, because governments sometimes they tend to, complain that resources are not there and so forth. But then human rights, there is one, principle in human rights, where resources are limited. You are expected to take steps. What have you taken? If you haven't taken any step and just say resources are not there, you cannot convince anybody in human rights. And also, they say use your resources to the maximum possible level. What have you done to use your resources at maximum possible level? To say that, okay, this year, this thing, you keep on just saying that resources are there, nobody will listen to you. Because what step have you taken? And when you talk about resources, it doesn't have to be even one area. You need to see different ways of getting money to be able to do this. And there are also bare minimum areas that you must do. Essential, core minimum essential areas. Those ones you cannot give any excuse. So that's why it's a huge task that has been given to us, because complaint can come from anywhere. And that's why we are even thinking of maybe in the next 3 or 4 weeks, we want to organize a workshop for persons with disabilities, so that we enlighten them, sensitize them to what is expected, for them to know, to better sensitize them to their rights and so forth. If you look at Persons with Disabilities Act, rights are stated there. For example, right to freedom from torture, which is a general or other forms of ill treatment. Also right to, liberty, which actually it looks simple, but it actually means right to freedom from arrest and detention. That is right to liberty. That's it also includes the right to, live independently and be included in the community. They have the right to live independently, and also it looks like how do you call it? There is this literature term conflicting. They have the right to live in the community, and also the right to live independently, and the right to be included in the community. So they have the rights, and they have the right to non-discrimination and equality. They have also the right to family. They should be entitled to marry. You cannot say, because this thing, I will not give my child to this thing. If that is heard, then it means that you are going against the person with disability rights. So it should be consent to the person to be married, not you parent also saying that no, because he's how can he take care of this thing? He's a person with disability. I will not allow him. He's a blind person. Should be free this thing. So family, right to family is also there, like having freedom. To have their own house, to be able to have secret in their family, home, marry, and also spacing of their children. It covers many areas, and also right to privacy. Just that because the person is there, you can always enter there and say you want to say, oh, you will give him a chance. All those things are there, and also access to justice. Access to justice is also important. And here, when they want to access, court systems should also have, these ramps and other things to facilitate their going there. And interpreters must be provided to them. Whether the government likes it or not. So it's a whole. It's a long. They have many issues. To be addressed. Those are all their right, exactly. So, and also right to participate in sports, cultural activities, and many other areas. They have right to all that. Political participation, they have right to all that. Those are all their rights. So that's why I'm saying we can have complaints from different angles. Exactly.
Thank you very much, Mr. Landing Bondi. Mr. Kamara, we have about 3 minutes, but nonetheless, we will, like you have mentioned at the end, that people with disabilities have the right to participate, in politics. And this is where I was coming to you, whether the ombudsman are allowed to oversee elections in the country. Just try to make it brief before they will say time is up and we have to.
Yeah, to make it brief, yes, the ombudsman does have powers to look into issues like that, because the Independent Electoral Commission is also, although independent, was also a public body. So therefore, it is within the jurisdiction of the ombudsman. Second, the fact that the ombudsman has a proactive mandate. The ombudsman is not only limited to waiting for complaints to come, and the ombudsman will get up and look into those complaints. No, the ombudsman has a mandate to initiate actions, to look into complaints or to look into matters that have a tendency of or that are prone to violations or possibilities of rights of people being violated exist, or there's a tendency of administrative processes, the procedures not being observed. So if you look at the conduct of election, there are several dimensions to it which will require the intervention of the ombudsman, and that is why the ombudsman has started to look into observing elections in the Gambia. The registration of voters, we started with that in 2021 July, then going to the presidential election, to the last mayoral election. Yeah, the ombudsman has been looking into that issue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kamara and Mr. Bondi. Mr. Bondi, we have about 1 minute or so. Like, for example, if a person with disability has his or her right snatched from them, and they come with a complaint, what would be your job in that case? What would you do for that person?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, this complaint will be received, and then we will conduct investigation to establish facts, to find out whether what the person has said is actually the case also. And if that happens, if we realize that rights have been infringed on, what we do is that we recommend to the government institution or the person involved for action, for things to change. That one we will do. But then I forgot to mention also, I mentioned ombudsman and then the advisory council. I forgot to mention that the courts are also involved in it, because there are areas there where they mentioned that where things fail, nothing can be done, and it can be forwarded to the court, especially at local government level, where they say that if, for example, somebody deprived their right in this thing, it can be reported to local government. And it's an interesting act. And then where it fails, and social welfare officer will come on, look at the report and advise. If you fail, then he or she can report to the court. Exactly. So courts are also involved. You have ombudsman, court, and then both court and ombudsman are in the protection aspect of the whole thing. Mm-hmm. Then when you talk about the advisory council, that is monitoring and raising awareness given to them. So you can see that the three institutions are key.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Kamara and Mr. Bondi. Viewers, this is all time allowed us. From us, MT International Gambia Studios, we say Assalamu alaikum for now until we come back here with the people from Ombudsman and we discuss on other issues. Thank you very much.